Why Russia will never stop controlling this city. Early in 2014, after Russia annexed Crimea, armed conflict broke out in eastern Ukraine. The demonstrations against Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych's decision to refuse an agreement for greater economic union with the European Union in Kyiv the year before were met with a violent assault by state security forces. In February 2014, President Yanukovych left the nation as the unrest grew and the war intensified. Russian forces seized control of the Ukrainian territory of Crimea 1 month later, in March 2014. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, mentioned the requirement to defend the rights of Russian nationals and speakers in Crimea and southeast Ukraine, after Crimeans cast their ballots to join the Russian Federation in a contentious local plebiscite. Russia officially annexed the territory. Pro-Russian rebels in the eastern Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk conducted their secession referendums 2 months after the crisis widened racial divides. The Ukrainian troops and forces backed by Russia soon engaged in armed combat in the local areas. Russian officials disputed any military participation, but Ukraine and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization noted a buildup of Russian forces and military hardware close to Donetsk and Russian cross-border bombardment soon after Crimea's annexation. The conflict developed into an active standoff with frequent shelling and battles taking place along the front lines dividing the areas of the east held by Russia and Ukraine. France, Germany, Russia, and Ukraine made an effort to initiate talks to stop the bloodshed through the Minsk Accords, which began in February 2015. The structure of the deal included the following: clauses requiring a halt to hostilities, the removal of heavy weapons, complete Ukrainian government authority over the entire combat zone. However, efforts to reach a diplomatic agreement and a satisfactory conclusion were mainly fruitless. NATO declared the dispatch of 4 battalions to Eastern Europe in April 2016 to thwart any potential Russian aggression elsewhere on the continent, especially in the Baltic states. The battalions would rotate through Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. To strengthen NATO's position in the area, the U.S. also sent 2 U.S. Army tank battalions to Poland in September 2017. The U.S. put new sanctions in place in January 2018 against 21 people, including several Russian leaders and 9 firms involved in the war in eastern Ukraine. The first transfer of lethal weapons since the war started when the U.S. Secretary of State authorized the sale of anti-tank weapons to Ukraine in March 2018. In a series of massive military drills in western Ukraine in October 2018, Ukraine participated alongside the U.S. and 7 other NATO nations. The largest military maneuvers since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia's yearly drills were conducted in September 2018 before the exercises. Months of intelligence collection and views of Russian soldier movements, force buildup, and military reserve funding ended in a White House meeting with U.S. intelligence, military, and foreign officials on a nearly certain mass-scale Russian assault on Ukraine in October 2021. The only lingering uncertainties were the date of the assault and whether the United States would successfully persuade allies to take preventive action. The Joe Biden administration took the unusual step of loosening restrictions on information sharing and allowing for wider dissemination of data and findings, both with allies, including Ukraine, and openly in the days and weeks before the attack. This plan aimed to strengthen Allied defenses and deter Russia from acting aggressively. Armor, missiles, and other heavy weapons were seen moving toward Ukraine in November and December 2021, according to commercial satellite imagery, social media reports, and general intelligence, all without a formal denial from the Kremlin. More than 100,000 Russian soldiers were stationed close to the Russia-Ukraine frontier by the end of 2021, and U.S. security authorities warned about a Russian invasion in early 2022. In the middle of December 2021, Russia's foreign ministry demanded that the U.S. and NATO end their military operations in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, pledged to stop further NATO enlargement in Russia's direction, and forbid Ukraine from ever entering NATO. In response to Russia's requests, the United States and other NATO partners rejected them and vowed to implement harsh economic sanctions. Satellite images from the beginning of February 2022 revealed the biggest deployment of Russian forces to Belarus's border since the end of the Cold War. The United States, Russia, and European nations like France and Germany failed to reach an agreement during negotiations. Due to Russia's expanding military presence at the Russia-Ukraine border, the United States warned in late February 2022 that Russia was meant to attack Ukraine. President Putin then ordered the army to Luhansk and Donetsk, saying the troops performed peacekeeping. A few days later, the United States retaliated by penalizing the areas on the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. U.S. and Ukrainian leaders, however, stayed at odds about the character and probability of an armed Russian danger in the days before the attack, with Ukrainian officials downplaying the chance of an attack and trying to delay the mobilization of their soldiers and reserve forces. Before moving on, subscribe to our channel for more interesting content like this. Hit the bell icon to receive notifications whenever a new video is posted. Putin declared the start of a full-scale land, sea, and air invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022 in response to a last-ditch UN Security Council attempt to deter Russia from invading Ukraine. The attack would target Ukrainian military assets and towns all over the nation. In collaboration with European partners, U.S. President Joe Biden branded the assault unprovoked and unjustified and imposed harsh sanctions on top Moscow figures like Putin and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, four of Russia's biggest banks, and the Russian oil and gas sector. In an extraordinary UN General Assembly meeting on March 2nd, 141 of the 193 UN member states agreed to denounce Russia's invasion and demand that Russia leave Ukraine immediately. Ukraine has also become the victim of hundreds of cyber attacks more frequently since the annexation of Crimea in 2014. Over 225,000 people in Ukraine lost power due to an assault on energy production companies in December 2015. A similar attack on a Ukrainian utility company resulted in another power outage in some areas of Kyiv in December 2016. The NotPetya cyber attack, blamed on Russia, struck the Ukrainian government and commercial computer systems in June 2017. The attack spread to computer systems around the globe and resulted in billions of dollars in losses. Alongside the Russian incursion in February 2022, distributed denial-of-service strikes were launched against the websites of the Ukrainian government, including those of the Defense and Interior Departments, financial institutions, and other associated organizations. Relationships between the United States and Russia are now at an all-time low, and there is a greater chance of a broader European war. Due to the security obligations of the Union, tensions are likely to rise between Russia and nearby Nato members, which would likely involve the U.S. Additionally, the war will have wider repercussions for future collaboration on crucial issues like weapons control, cybersecurity, nuclear non-proliferation, economic stability globally, energy security, counterterrorism, and political solutions in Syria, Libya, and other places. Along with destabilizing global energy and resource markets, Russia's growing isolation has also led it to seek greater strategic connections with those nations like China, still ready to cooperate primarily in opposition to the West. With military operations and violence impeding the transport and distribution of desperately needed aid, including food, and aggravating an already acute shortage of resources and humanitarian aid accessible globally, the conflict has also worsened other global crises. Long-range rocket attacks seriously damaged Ukrainian military equipment, urban residential areas, and communication and transit infrastructure as the original Russian assault slowed. Additionally, apartment buildings and hospitals were the targets of bombing and shelling assaults. Russia declared it would decrease military action close to Kyiv and Chernihiv in late March 2022. By April 6, all Russian forces had left the area surrounding the Ukrainian city. Following the Russian departure from Kyiv's environs, Ukrainian citizens gave accounts of rape, torture, and apparent war crimes by Russian troops. These reports included summary executions. After failing to take over the city, Russia began a massive assault in eastern Ukraine on April 18th. Mariupol, a significant and extremely important port city in the southeast that had been under attack since late February, was taken under Russian authority by the end of May. The cruelty of the Russian assault, which had left the city in ruins and sparked a severe humanitarian crisis, was exposed by drone video made public by Ukraine's far-right Azov battalion. Attacks on civilians in the town that were random and deliberate, such as an airstrike on a theater and the bombing of a maternity facility, fueled accusations that Russian troops had broken international humanitarian law. Russia began its largest-scale offensive against Ukraine on October 10th and targeted several residential areas during rush hour, as well as military and energy infrastructure. Attacks on the city were among the 14 regions targeted by the strikes. Following Ukrainian troops' partial destruction of the sole bridge spanning the occupied Crimean Peninsula's border with Russia, Russia has stepped up its assault. That's all for today. If you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. What do you think? Will Russia win or give up? Express your valuable thoughts in the comments section below. Until then, bye. Also, spend some time watching other videos on the channel.